Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on the Lenovo Yoga 7i. Now, when I first unboxed this last year, I knew this was going to be one of the most popular 2-in-1s on the market, simply because its redesign, I believe, is excellent. It has great overall build quality, very good specifications, and then a price that, well, makes it very attractive, even if you don't need a 2-in-1. And that original price was $11.99. As of the time of this video, it is on sale at Best Buy for $799 US. I'll include a link in the description, and if you prefer to save a little more money, you can step down to the i5 model. It does have half the amount of RAM, so you're stepping down from the Intel 12th Gen i7 with 16 gigs of DDR5 to the i5 12th Gen chipset with 8 gigs of DDR5 RAM. Keep in mind the RAM is soldered. You cannot upgrade it. With that out of the way, let's take a look and a listen to its 16-inch 2560 by 1600 resolution IPS display. It is a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. You may have already noticed that from, well, the way it looks. That is complemented by quad speakers that, in my opinion, end up giving it one of the best overall experiences you're going to get from a content consumption point of view from a machine at this price point. So I think I'm going to stop it there. And I think you already get an idea of how good that IPS panel is. I mean, it is not high refresh for those of you that are wondering, but still 2560 by 1600 resolution, I think roughly 400 nits of brightness. It is a really nice display, especially when you take into account the cost of this machine. Now let's talk about performance. I already mentioned it sports this particular build that is selling for a little under $800 US, has an Intel 12th Gen i7 processor. Yes, 13th Gen is coming. Do you need 13th Gen? Most likely not. This is an Ultrabook after all. Yes, it's a 2-in-1. It does not include a pen. You'll have to get that separately if it's something you absolutely have to have, but that's easy to get. You can see I've got one right here. Pen input works well, but that's, again, not what today's video is about, especially since a pen is not included. So with that Core i7 processor, the 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and the half terabyte NVMe drive on board, you're going to get a fully fledged machine that can pretty much handle just about anything you throw at it in the realm of Ultrabooks. This is not designed for 4K video editing or, necessarily, I would say, raw photo editing with extreme file size from something like, a Sony a7R5, but it will be able to edit 4K video. It will be able to edit images like I just mentioned. It's just not an ideal machine for that. Just as when it comes to something like gaming, because it has Iris Xe graphics on board, which, yes, we're waiting, we need a refresh, you can actually also spec this machine out with an Intel Arc GPU. I'm not saying I recommend doing that, but it's a nice extra oomph if you're looking for more GPU capability. But again, kind of like the photo and video editing, you can game. I'm not saying you will want to game. So older titles, those are going to be fine. You want to play some Counter-Strike, you want to play some legacy type titles, no problem. If you're going to try to play current AAA titles, please remember this is an Ultrabook that does not have a GPU. It only has, of course, Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics solution. And that's why the 3D Mark Time Spy score looks as it does. Now, when it comes to that half terabyte NVMe SSD that's included, you can see that the read and write speeds are fine, but they don't look like they're Gen 4 speeds, and that's because the drive that comes installed simply isn't, even though, of course, Intel's 12th gen CPU supports it. So if that really disturbs you and you want to throw a higher speed NVMe drive in there, that you can upgrade without any hesitation. Remember, the RAM, on the other hand, is soldered, so if you decide to go with that i5 model with 8 gigs of RAM, you will be living with 8 gigs of RAM until you no longer either live or use the machine. Not to be morbid, you get my point. So keep that in mind. I personally don't think most users need to upgrade that, because even though, of course, Gen 4, forget about the Gen 5 drives coming, but Gen 4 drives will outperform this significantly, how much you're going to see that in applications is a debate I will not begin now. So unless you really need more storage, you're probably going to be happy with the 0.5 terabyte that comes inside the machine out of the box. But it is upgradable, much like the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth chipset. So Wi-Fi 6E out of the box, I've had no connectivity issues with this. So that's good news. No Wi-Fi dropouts, really no problems at all. When it comes to Bluetooth 5.1, you're not going to see any issues there either. But as I mentioned, it is not that the Wi-Fi chipset is not soldered, so it is user upgradable. Certainly a nice thing for the future. Let's talk about the keyboard, trackpad. These are all things I know people are curious about, and the webcam. So first and foremost, the keyboard I think is good. It doesn't have amazing key travel, but what you do get out of it is a numerical keypad. Now, for some of you, you don't want it. And that's what smaller machines are for. I can't really speak to larger machines that just omit it, but I think it's nice to have on a machine this size. It does weigh a little over 4 pounds. I think it's a little under 4.25. So that's not incredibly heavy, but heavy for an Ultrabook. But remember, you have a 16-inch display on this machine, so it's not a typical Ultrabook when it comes to its footprint and overall form factor. But again, the keyboard is solid. You expect that from Lenovo. They have the ThinkPad heritage. That doesn't mean all of their machines have great keyboards, but my experience with this has been good. Backlighting is solid. You have all of your designated control keys, which I will give you a quick close-up of right now. The function keys, they all have secondary functions, and they work as they should. Fingerprint scanner right here, very large trackpad, which I think is really nice. It does have a physical click that is tactile and audible. So overall, no real complaints. You can see the speaker grill running along the top of the keyboard deck right there. Just a really nice machine, well made, put together, I think, how you want a premium laptop to be. No issues with the hinge, so really tight. I think this is something that Lenovo has paid attention to. They realize that, a little wobble is one thing, but having terrible wobble, like the type that when you're typing on it, it would produce wobble, is inexcusable, and this machine does not suffer from that. The webcam is full HD. I believe it's 2 megapixels. We do have a privacy shutter. I'll bring that in close again so it's very clear that it's there. So, you can easily flip that back and forth, and that is how, very easily you can make sure that your webcam is off and, privacy concerns abated. So nice to have that. If you're wondering why I'm pointing it out, it's because a lot of Lenovo machines and a lot of laptops in general do not necessarily have a privacy shutter. The microphone array up there for video conferencing, it serves the purpose. So I feel like the fact that we also have IR capability, which means Windows Hello compatible, a good thing. You may be scratching your head yet again, but there were plenty of machines all of a few years ago where Windows Hello was more of, a novelty than a standard feature. Now, when we get into battery life, I mean, this is a fairly large machine, right? It is not small. Again, 16-inch display, a little over 4 pounds. You're looking at a 71 watt-hour battery. But in terms of what you're going to realistically get on battery life, I would say you're looking at somewhere between 5 and 7 hours real-world use. That does not mean you cannot get closer to 8 to 9. I think most of you are interested in real world. But the I/O, the ports, are where this thing really shines. Again, in making it an all, or rather a well-rounded machine that just about anybody's going to be happy with, as long as they know that it's going to check the boxes they need checked. So, full-size SD card reader. Anyone who follows my channel knows, boy, do I miss the days where we had these everywhere. Love them. Love that we have it here. The card does not go flush into the slot. I don't see that as being an issue at all. Then we have two Thunderbolt 4 ports. They are completely full functioning, so they do everything. Data transfer, display, you name it. They are Thunderbolt 4 at its best and brightest. This is also how you're going to charge the machine. You can see the indicator right there. It does come with a 65 watt power brick, so pretty much any 65 watt power brick is going to do for this, which is nice for travel. Then you have a Type A USB port, just for those times where obviously you need it. HDMI 2.0 to the left of it. That's pretty much it on that side. As we come to the back of the machine, just a lot of ventilation, which is to be expected. And then on the right-hand side, we have the good old power button that has its own LED, another Type A USB port, and your headphone microphone combo jack. And that's pretty much it. If I flip this baby over, a lot more ventilation as well as access screws, because as I mentioned, you can open this up, you can get in there and upgrade a few things. You're just not going to upgrade the RAM, among several other things. Only one fan on this machine, and if you're wondering how loud and hot it gets, let's talk about that next. So, with this machine, I have noticed that the fan does kick up. It's not terrible, not incredibly loud, and it's not on all the time, but inherently, like all laptops out there, it is going to cycle on and cool the machine down. I have not noticed a lot of thermal throttling with it, but then again, I haven't really been pushing this to, its limitations, because again, it's really not that kind of machine when you think about it. But never really got hot. Obviously, the places that are going to get the warmest really reside in the keyboard realm, because this is where the processor hardware is, but I've never once felt that during use. So I think that's good to know. The touchscreen works exactly as it should. Something I didn't mention at the top of the video. I said it's a 2-in-1, supports pen input. That means you do also have a traditional touchscreen, which is certainly nice. And then, of course, because it is a Yoga and it is a 2-in-1, you have that 360-degree hinge. So if you want to, go into tent mode, you can. If you want to, I can start practicing all of these for you so you can see them, although it is kind of tough with my right arm. What can I tell you? Actually, both arms these days. But pretty much any mode you want to put it in, you can. Content consumption mode, tablet mode, although this machine is a little bit large for tablet mode, no question about it. But it does it all, and that's what's nice about having a 2-in-1. So a lot of people will say to me, why would I buy a 2-in-1 when I don't need a 2-in-1? Excuse this crap that popped up. But the reality is that if it's the same price as that regular laptop you were looking at, why on earth wouldn't you be buying something like this? Also, I can tell you, as someone who reviews laptops, manufacturers have been pouring more and more money into the 2-in-1 space, which ends up meaning that, at least in my experience, these products have more premium materials, generally speaking, and in some cases, longer and better support, because they are not getting phased out as quickly. Now, granted, this is a brand new redesign on the chassis with these curved corners. Started with the 9i. I think it was a great move, so kudos to Lenovo on doing that. But again, even if you don't need a 2-in-1, this is the laptop to buy right now at $799. If you're looking for a machine under $1,000 that has, a solid processor, as much RAM as you'll need for the foreseeable future, and then, a gorgeous 16-inch IPS 2560 by 1600 res display that also happens to have a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, remains thin. You can hook up an eGPU to this if you want a game. Maybe that's a demo I'll do for those of you that might be interested, because you absolutely can play games that way. Then this really does start to become a machine that pretty much anyone could own, use, and appreciate. And again, with that $799 price, or the less expensive model at $599, which I don't recommend going that route unless you absolutely know that you don't need the extra 8 gigs of RAM. Forget about the difference in the i5 and the i7. It's just tough to beat this from any manufacturer. And yes, there are less expensive HPs and Lenovo's out there in their the least expensive categories. But why on earth even begin to flirt with those when, again, you can step into a more premium build that you can buy at Best Buy if you have any sort of issues. Obviously, you can return it. Best Buy's pretty good with that. Just don't get yourself banned, folks. That means don't abuse the policy with any retailer, preferably. Different story for a different time, that conversation is. But I'm starting to sound like Yoda. But this is the machine to buy right now at $799. At $1,200, there are a lot of machines to look at. But at $799, there really aren't. And not with these specifications and not with this build quality. And again, great speakers, great display, a good, not amazing keyboard, a great trackpad, a solid webcam. What else could you ask for? I mean, the only way this thing could really get better is if the price went lower and if somehow they stuffed an actual GPU I would want in there rather than one of Intel's Arc series, even though that's better than Iris Xe, obviously. Discrete versus integrated. You got me. But that pretty much rounds it out. Again, links are in the description. Said it would be quick, but it's my first time really revisiting this and doing so at a price that I don't know how long Best Buy will have it on sale for $799, but I highly recommend grabbing one. Again, if you are shopping, waiting for a deal, you are going to be hard-pressed to find a better machine for $799 from a reputable retailer here in the U.S. So again, links in the description. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe and please stay safe. Later.